Pablo played a lead role, or he was the designer or the head of several projects developed by this structure, like Podium Podcast, which is a global Spanish podcast network, Health Project, Audio Search and Social Discovery, and Taylorcast Project, which is a customized linear audio experience. In this conversation, we have the situation that recalls 10 years ago when we were enthusiastic about 24 Symbols, which is a Spanish company with a subscription model for ebooks, text books. And I remember that we had a lot of debates about this business model 8 or 9 years ago. And one of the things that we used to say is that, as I told you, we were enthusiastic, but the problem was that when you are, we compare 24 Symbols with the Spotify for the books. And we usually said that the problem with this business model is that when you are driving a car or making or cooking a Spanish omelette, you can't read a book at the same time. So maybe the voice tech and all the smart speakers and the platforms around these devices could be a kind of solution for us in order to colonize other slots of time in our daily life, also with books content. And this is one of the main things that we are going to talk about now. I would like now to ask Shane, please, to present your project.
Great. Thanks, Luis.
Okay. Forward. Is this one?
Okay. Back a couple of slides.
Is this yours?
Perfect. Okay. Hi. So good morning, everybody. My name is Shane, co-founder of NOAA. We're headquartered in Ireland, and what I'm going to do is spend the next 10 or 15 minutes just talking through exactly what we're doing.
I think that they can't hear you.
Oh.
Do you?
No.
Now, try again.
Okay? Better? Now? Yeah? Excellent. Okay. So guys, I'm going to spend the next 10 or 15 minutes just talking through... Is that okay? Am I gone? Can you hear me? Okay. Third time lucky. So next 10 or 15 minutes, going to talk you through, know exactly what we're working on, who we're partnering with, where the idea came from, and really the problem that we're trying to solve for. So this whole idea for NOAA came about, surprisingly, around a topic of journalism. And journalism is not my background, nor is it the background of my co-founder, Garrett. We were both working in technology and finance, respectively, 3 years ago. News, consumption of news and information from the FT, Bloomberg, the New York Times, and many other quality publications was essentially a need for our jobs to stay informed, specifically in Garrett's space, where financial information, as an equity analyst processing quick decisions, you're using those Bloomberg terminals, you're looking out for those FT nuggets that really enhance your ability to make a really informed decision. And we found ourselves kind of coming up against the same problem day in, day out, week in, week out, is that we just did not have a time to consume the information that was available to us, the subscriptions that we had. Just finding the time to sit down and read a 750 or 1,000 word Financial Times piece, we really struggled. We were working many hours a day. We were trying to balance, early in our careers, trying to balance a semblance of trying to be successful in a corporate space and also some semblance of a social life as well. Really leaves little time for consuming consuming high-quality journalism, especially, and one of the previous presenters alluded to this, that there's just so much abundance of applications and means for consumption out there right now that journalism really struggles to compete. And what we did, I guess, was we started toying around with this idea of journalism narrated. And this kind of came from two fronts. It was looking how audiobooks had taken spoken word off the page, made it equally as enjoyable and informative in the audio format as it was in the written format, and kind of looking at our own consumption windows as well. We both drove to work. We both, worked out at the gym, did chores around the house. We found so many use cases whereby we could listen while we did other things rather than holding the paper or consuming on a digital platform. This consumption window was really apparent to us, that we could really have to grow this consumption window. And as I kind of alluded to, the inspiration behind this certainly stemmed from audiobooks and that industry taking that spoken word off the page and making it equally enjoyable over audio. The growth, I guess, the explosion of podcasts over the last certainly over the last 5 years and even prior to that. And certainly music as well, and music's ability to take all of the content, put it on a single platform and charge one single price for it per month, like Spotify and Apple are doing, and others. They were kind of the industry trends that sort of overridingly told us that there could be a home for journalism to exist over audio, live on a single platform, and be billed at a single price for the user each month or whatever billing period we felt was applicable. So we got to work on building this thing, and in addition to building out our products at the time, mobile and web were our core focuses, and we also began having conversations with these partnering publishers that we've added over the past couple of years, starting in our backyard and with the Irish Times, and then launching ultimately in May 2017 with the FT, Bloomberg, Independent, and Irish Times. Thereafter, we added some US publications, Business Insider, New York Times, and so on through the rest of that list. And I guess what happened, over that 3 years is we continue to consume audio content and music and audiobooks. The growth of podcasts was really outrageous and fantastic to us, because it meant that people were just listening more and more and more. And what happened, of course, in the smart speaker space was incredibly exciting. When Gareth and I first sat down to trash this thing out on a whiteboard, Amazon's Alexa operating system had just launched in the US. This was not really on our radars at all. But I think it started to generate a lot of hype around what you could do with voice, what you could do with audio, and essentially the new opportunities for audio in this space, driven by hardware and software. So you're probably wondering how this process works, and it's probably best described in an incredibly boring slide, a process map. So starting top left, so obviously text articles exist, and we go through an article curation process. We don't narrate every single piece, but we work with the newsrooms to pick what we feel are the best articles that will work over audio. Generally, this tends to be the stories that tell a good story, that allude themselves well to storytelling, like opinion, analysis, comment pieces work really, really well over audio, because it allows you to sink your teeth into something for between 5 and 15 minutes, depending on the length of the piece. And so we work with those newsrooms, and our internal editorial team work to curate this content. That is then distributed out for narration, so we don't use text-to-speech yet. We have real human narrators based in Dublin, based in the UK, and based in the US as well, to essentially satisfy the local needs of our market. They produce an audio file that gets uploaded to our server and gets distributed on the various NOAA products, which I'll go into now in a second. And essentially, that's for the user to consume on our various products, and the model is a revenue share back to the publisher. So kind of identical to how Spotify manage it with their various music labels. They take the content in, single platform, and give them a cut of the share of revenue. In terms of our products, because product is primarily my area, and it'll probably give you a really good sense of where we exist right now. So we've naturally got a mobile app, which looks a little bit like this. Within that mobile app, obviously the number one objective is to essentially block the screen, to not see it, to put it back in your pocket so that you're listening while you're doing other things, if you're driving, if you're at the gym, if you're out for a walk, whatever the case may be. But within that mobile app, we're seeking to do things that are a little bit differently within the news sphere as well. Our homepage, you'll find when you download the app, is filled with a mix of articles. It's filled with playlists, and these playlists are sort of not at the traditional high level of technology, finance, politics, sport, and so on. We sort of take that down a step, and we'll have a playlist about Brexit. We'll have a playlist about golf or football. We'll have a playlist about Spanish elections or whatever is trending at the moment. And that's what you'll find on our home screen. And the third device over is an insight as to what that playlist looks like. Essentially, you can go from top to bottom on a single topic. We're adding layers of gamification to it, very much to be developed out later this year, but to give a user a sense of finishability. So if you're engaging with a particular topic and you see that you're 70% through it, then you know you're fairly well abreast of what's going on in that particular topic. If your score starts to come back down, then you'll know new events have happened and you need to continue to listen to that playlist. And of course, there's the traditional access points to content as well. On the home screen, you'll also find access to publishers, various big-name journalists and columnists. So that usability within the app, we're trying to do things, I guess, that are less traditional in terms of, the main headline up front, and that's the same headline that everybody sees. We want to layer in, or we are layering in, that element of personalization and customization to essentially make it feel a little bit more tailored and aid with content discovery. As I kind of alluded to earlier, the smart speaker space has been fantastic tailwind for us over the past few years, especially with the growth of Alexa, with Google entering that space, with Home, Apple to a lesser extent. But these operating systems and these physical units and their unit sales over the last few years are incredibly encouraging for us in the audio space, and we've got a presence there whereby you can ask Alexa to, as you can see on screen, open Noah and play the New York Times, or ask Google what the news is. Once your Noah skill is enabled, in that case, it will work. So again, fantastic, space to be in right now with audio, just given the growth and popularity of these devices. And we work pretty closely with both Amazon and Google, and those guys are heavily invested in the success of those products, and certainly see them sticking around for a long, long time. So for sure, an exciting space. Next up is the connected car space, and in particular the in-car infotainment systems, which are becoming more and more sophisticated. We've got presence on Android Auto and Apple CarPlay, and I guess this market is interesting because everything coming off the production line right now is coming with either both the Apple and Google operating systems, or one of them, or in addition to that, the native operating system as developed by the manufacturer themselves. I guess as these cars continue to come off the production line with this capability enabled and start to seep into the second-hand market, I guess over the next 3 to 10 years, anybody that drives in this room, either now or latest in 10 years' time, is going to be looking at a dashboard like this with applications on it. So the in-car space is obviously very important to us, and we've started to develop applications in that space very much as a future investment, because it's just perfect for us. No different than doing other things and listening to Noah on Alexa around the home while you're driving anywhere, driving to work, driving around the country, whatever the case may be. If you're in a position to listen where you can't read, or at least it's not very safe to read, us having a presence in that space is obviously very important to us, and that's just a quick look at how that looks. So I guess in conclusion, or in summary, that's what Noah's all about. We live corely on mobile, in addition to that, smart speakers. So we'd absolutely invite everybody to download it, check it out, and be happy to hear any feedback either today or in the future. So thank you guys very much.
Thanks.
I'm Paulo Fernandez. I'm the innovation head of Prisa Radio. Prisa Radio is this company you see here, a huge company operating in Spain and Latin America. We have operations here in Madrid, all over Spain, and our main operations are in Mexico, Colombia, Argentina, and Chile. Lots of countries, millions of audience, unique browsers, and our business model has been working the same since our first station were funded like a century ago. Our business model is advertise sport, and we own the antennas. The government gives you a license, and you control the distribution channel. So the entry barrier there has been very high for a very long time. We are very used to be alone in the market, in this attention market that is now in every mouth. We have been alone for a long time. But something is changing, okay? The digital products like Shane and lots of companies put it in the market and making us compete for the attention, the shared attention of the user. Radio is something you do while doing another things. And we were alone there until many other digital products appear. These data are from the Spanish market. 57% of the Spanish population listened to online audio in the last month, okay? And they mostly use traditional radio, but other forms of content are appearing there. If you see there, we have playlists, we have on-demand radio, and voice content. What's that? We are competing with WhatsApp. Audio notes being sent by social networks is also a competitor. We have podcasts, and we have platforms. They call it aggregators in this report, but we are talking about iVoox, TuneIn, iTunes, and smart speaker, interactive audio. Okay, so we have been the most popular brands in the audio scene for many years, but in this report that is from May, the main brand remembered by the population in Spain is not a traditional one. For the first time is a digital one, is Spotify. Then you can see Los 40, that is our music radio. You can see Cadena Ser, that is the radio, but we have been seeing competitors, new competitors appear in the market. And this is the kind of content people are consuming: music, news, content about TV, comedy, sports, editorial opinion, culture, and audiobooks, okay? So what to do in this scenario? I'm in charge of innovation, so we have been thinking about it since we started to work in this area 5 years ago. So there are 3 main areas we are acting on. Focus on content, focus on distribution and discovery of our products, and the interaction model with the customers. The content, we have been working in the audio streams. I mean, we put in digital channels all what we do in the traditional channel, in analog channels, but also we are creating streams where user can consume audio in the same way, lean back experience, but with new contents, okay? And then we are developing on-demand audio based on what we broadcast on the radio with the catch-up and audio clips, but also the native audio. And this is the biggest, let's see, it goes. The biggest product we have put in the market in the last years, digital product from the radio, is Podium Podcast. We developed a native content brand of shows. It was born in June 2016, and now has 90 shows, native shows, with over 50 million downloads since launch, okay? We are creating our content. The content is tailor-made for the channel, so you don't have to hear 3 hours of radio show. You have 20-minute episodes. The topics are more niche, and people are reacting very well to it. We are adapting already existing IP and creating our own. So, and we are starting this year to split the brand to create Podium Studios because we detected that branded podcast in audio is growing a lot. We have a lot of business there, and we are working with the Prisa brands. We are working in co-productions with publishers and platforms, and we produce for anyone who wants to produce audio. We are experts at this. As I said, we have been doing this for a century, and if you are thinking about doing a podcast in Spanish, we are the leading network, and these guys are killing it. So approach us if you want to do something in that sphere. Those are some examples of the shows we are doing with brands, and that's mainly what we are doing in content, taking what we do on the broadcast and put it in on the digital channels and creating a specific intellectual property content tailor-made for the channels. Then we are facing the discovery issue. Is the main problem audio has in the internet. Audio is a black box for internet, search engines, social networks. They don't see what's inside of our content. So we have to work to make it visible. The digital audio ecosystem is very complex, very fragmented, and very based on machine discovery. And audio is not written word. So you have to do things to make it visible. So that's why we started the HERT project. It was a Google DNI Fund project, and basically what we have been doing is transcribing every piece of audio we publish. We have been transcribing 48 hours of audio every day and automatically tagging it to make clear what cluster of content it belongs to. And we created tools for users to be able to share that content through social networks. The results of that project that ended in January last year is that we got a 20% increase in the traffic we got from search engines. So adding meta tags and meta information to your content when you are working with audio is basic to get the visibility you need. Okay, and finally we are working in the new interactions. We have a new project funded by Google that will last till 2021. And what we are trying to do is, this was like the natural evolution on the previous one. We have all those audios that we know what's inside that. And we have been seeing that people that consume audio like that experience, that they hit play button and they can sit and lean back and don't do nothing. But they are also very used to have personalized content. So what we are doing in this project is designing a way to give users mixed experience, the best from radio, the best from the on-demand internet. So we are creating streams of personalized audio that sound like radio, okay? And as it is personalized, we can also segment our target advertising much better, okay? And finally, let's see if I can show you the last two slides. We are working with the smart speakers. The technology that has been growing and is going to reach all our homes faster in the history. Gartner says that in 2020, 75% of the population in the United States will have this technology at home, and it's going to be incorporating in our lives faster than mobile phones. So this is huge for us. It's for the very first time there is a technology where all the biggest companies in the world are working with audio, but it's some kind of frightening too. See Google, for example, the potential audience of these technologies is 2,000 billion, 2 billion of people. So these are companies that are those frenemies where you can work with, but you're gonna have to compete. So we are developing skills for these environments, trying to not to be disintermediated, to be fast, okay, and finish and leave space for the conversation. We are developing our own products over those platforms and making audio searchable and interactive to be able to engage with the users there. And we are also developing those products with our brand identity there. When you develop products over third-party platforms, you have to be very careful to keep your identity. So that's it. Thank you very much.
During these 2 days were voice tech and or audiobooks and subscription models. Another one is user experience. As a foundation, we are working in trying to translate UX ideology to the libraries. But Shane, you are a designer, are you? What's your take on that? The user experience in this context?
So designing for it is a nightmare because you're trying to anticipate, I guess, anything that you could say to this speaker that's sitting here in front of you. You know, you can virtually say anything, try and trick it. I think, you know, the first time I brought a smart speaker back down to my family, my dad spent the first 20 minutes trying to trick it, you know. And I think people will do that. People will find themselves in various routes that you've got to be ready to solve for. It's got to be able to predict, I guess, what the user is going to do, and that's just one side of the challenge. The other is it's got to flow. It's got to be seamless. If you want to get to a specific piece of audio content, you got to get there seamlessly without having to go through many menus and layers, and you're trying to, I guess, designing a mobile app is fine because you can see it all in front of you. You can map it out. When you're trying to design something for voice, I guess mapping that is very much about process mapping, but you're almost closing your eyes and thinking, okay, how is a user going to get from A to B without tripping themselves up or without our operating system tripping it up, if you know what I mean.
What's your opinion?
We have learned so many things this year. These 2 years we have been developing for interaction with audio. How diverse is Spanish, for example, developing interactions for all our markets and trying to guess what people are going to tell your apps is very, very, very surprising. We have in one product here, our talk radio station, Cadena Ser, we are working with 2,000 entities that are shows, segments, radio stations, and for each one of them, people can tell you, I want the name of the show, or they can say, I want the show of this host, or I want the morning show, or so we had to prepare like a database or 10,000 synonyms for all of these entities. And just recently discovered that we have a potential partner in technology that is working with machine learning to do that. So what we have been working for 6 months with a documentalist, now we can do like hitting a button. So another thing we learn is this design process is very difficult, but machines are going to be very helpful also in building those models of interaction. So.
One of the things that I do sometimes is listen podcast. I usually listen a podcast is about news in the world, about Trump, about earthquakes, but in Latin language. Among 3 young women. It was really tricky to find this content. So what do you think about the discoverability issue when we refer to audio content?
Yeah, what needs to lie beneath that is obviously a very credible tagging system or a means by which you can identify audio content, because it's for so long it was a case of trying to find something within the title, and it's interesting to see what you guys are doing in terms of transcribing so that you can actually utilize that. What we do in our article upload system is we obviously have the article text, which is searchable. We get our team to add a ton of tags to it. It's got the title, it's got the journalist publication. So we've got so much metadata behind our content that it makes it so much more easier to discover. And I guess It's the thing about our app is that when somebody uses search in our app, they're searching so many fields, so many options in terms of the text, the tagging and title and so on. And we've been very conscious about that because, trying to find something, even on YouTube for so long when tagging was so weak was very difficult. You know it's there, but finding it is very difficult. So I think we're just becoming a lot more aware of what a user is going to do with a search engine, and therefore either getting manual with it or applying machine learning and AI where we can to help give audio content just a ton of metadata that makes it so much easier to discover. And I think there's been some fantastic steps made in that over the past couple of years.
So anyway, it's a learning process for you, most important.
Yes, sure, we are all learning on that. I think the whole industry is playing with these two schools, like curating content or using artificial intelligence to recommend you the biggest players. You have the school of curating represented with Spotify and the curated lists of content. And then you have Google doing all this algorithmic, and Apple recently announced that. So I think it would be a perfect mix of that, trying not avoiding all those information bubbles in the algorithm side, and trying to put some editorial also in the mix for users see a difference in what you are offering. Then not only being the machine the one choosing the content, so you can offer them a perfect mix of both schools.
And then with this new branch of the industry, there is a huge field for new decisions or new decision taking, such as let's say human narration versus text to speech, user experience versus scalable business or scalability. What do you think about that?
Yeah, and this is text-to-speech versus human narration is a question that we get asked all the time, and we ask of ourselves all of the time. For us, we started this company on the grounds of human narration, that it's a very enjoyable user experience versus text-to-speech. There's no question that text-to-speech has progressed significantly over the past couple of years. Very few would argue that it's to the point where you would listen to a 7 or 8 minute Financial Times piece and another one, and continue to enjoy just the subtle, I guess, lack of intonation that's in text-to-speech right now. It is for sure progressing. And once that progresses to a point where a critical mass of users say it's enjoyable enough, then you don't need the humans as much anymore, and it becomes a lot more of a scalable business to take essentially every piece of written word out there and put it over audio. And that opens up, on your previous question, finding something in native language just does not exist in our world, because we would need an English speaker, a Spanish speaker, French, and so on. And we just can't do that. However, in a world where text-to-speech is enjoyable enough, we can do it in English, and we can do it in virtually every other language as well, and we could do every single article. So for us, it's we've not moved to a text-to-speech world, nor will we until the critical mass of users have a satisfactory UX. Rather than just going straight for scale, it's got to be enjoyable. You've got to be able to listen to many articles back to back in our case and enjoy it without getting frustrated at what this thing sounds like. You know what I mean?
In the case of the Spanish language, what do you think? Is the situation similar?
It's very similar. I think that it's not just a matter of volume and quality of the text-to-speech technology. We like to think that people give value also to the creative side. So as sound creators, we think and we see that the sound design is also important, that how the creativity of people that is doing that audio also matters. So that's why maybe it's not the same to listen to the daily of the New York Times that listening to a radio bulletin that we do. There are different kinds of production. The products are different, and there will be room for all of them. And there are some kind of content that can now be provided by text-to-speech, the weather information, sports results, and all this stuff that is continually changing, and you need a constant update. It's not scalable to do it by humans. And there are other contents that are not recently, I can't think of being made by machines, like fiction, for example. But then you see some things. I recently have seen a trailer made by IBM Watson. You can give this machine a movie, 2 hours of movie. He has been analyzing the trailers and movies of the past year, and in 2 days, it comes out with a 2-minute piece of video that is a perfect trailer of the movie. So, well, I would tell you, humans will keep their creativity on top, and they will be differentiated products, but seeing machines do that, it makes you think things are growing so exponentially that I don't know where we will be in 5 years.
Pablo, we talked before some months ago about the adoption rate, which is not so fast. I tend to think that if we compare with other content, other kind of content, or even the adaptation of ebooks, it's not so slow. But anyway, it's always a challenge to work with the monetization of your business, of your content, with the slow rate of adaptation by the consumers. What do you think about that?
Yeah, sure. I'm here. I'm the innovation head. If the market was at another stage, you will be talking with the business development manager. Or we are on a very early stage of the voice ecosystems. But as I said in my presentation, it's growing very, very, very fast. No one of us could think in 2007 that we will be working with these mobiles in our pockets in just 9 years, and a whole business has developed on top of this. And smart speakers and voice ecosystems, artificial intelligence is growing faster than this. As a business based on audio, we can't be blind to that. So nowadays the business is not very big, the audiences are not very big, but radio, 40% of the radio is listened to the car, and the car is going to be connected very soon. So we have to think on ways of performing much better in advertisement business models, but also try to reimagine our business in other ways. It can be producing for people like you. It can be putting in place a subscription model of very niche products. It can be doing audiobooks. It can do doing many things. But one thing, and this is a personal thought, is that this industry is going to change forever, like any other content industries have done. We have those entry barriers that are still in place, but they're going to be destroyed in some years. So we have to be there, thinking about what's happening.
And Shane, what's your take on that?
Yeah, I would completely echo what Pablo was saying. I mean, we're going through such a period of quite shocking change. We don't know how fast things are going to move over the next 5 or 10 years. For me, I certainly see a world in 5 or 10 years' time where perhaps the dust is starting to settle, and perhaps there is a new world for books, for news, for radio, because the technology has been fully developed. I certainly do see the rate of innovation slowing down in this space over the next 5 to 10 years. But until that dust sort of settles, then you've got to react and be very nimble to what technology throws out, and what the market is willing to adopt to is probably the most valuable lesson from the past 5 or 10 years. And looking forward, we need to apply that going forward.
Well, and one last question, because you represent different kind of players. Your company is the owner of content, and your role is different. So, how do you think that the relation between publishers or content owners and platforms would evolve during the next, let's say, 2-3 years? Fry enemies, you say, no?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I see a lot of collaboration. It already exists right now between us and our respective partners, both on the editorial and content front, but also on the innovation side of things as well. I mean, we're about to start supplying audio content back to our publishers, so it's certainly going to be a collaborative relationship. And you know, if which we're in the game of building platforms. I think if you continue to build platforms that users want and satisfy your partners, then you're onto a winner.
That relation will be very affected by things like rights management. I think that's something we have to think a lot about, because as content owners, we have to think about how we made our content and what users we can provide to the platforms. That's one thing. Another thing I think about it is regulatory platforms. Some of them have grown too much for some people, and we have been seeing movements in governments like the US that are thinking already or limiting the power of those platforms, because the market is starting to be not very fair for the people that create content. So as long as these things evolve, I think we have to try to understand each other and take the benefits of working with people that have expertise in technology on one side and distribution on one side and content creation on the other side. But from our point of view of the publisher, we have to evolve those sides of how do you work with the business side on a distribution channel that you no longer own. And how do you manage the creation of your content, your IP, to be able to monetize that in a better way? So
that's interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Cheers.